Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Adam Dorsey, a psychologist in Silicon Valley and the host of SuperPsyched, a podcast dedicated to supercharging your life. Each episode contains fun, high-quality interviews with experts looking at psychology from all angles. SuperPsyched is your tool to get more of what you want in your life and less of what you don't.
2 years ago, I had the pleasure of interviewing one of the most popular thought leaders in modern psychology. That person is none other than Dr. Frank Anderson. Frank is a Harvard-trained psychiatrist who has turned his attention to treatment of trauma, particularly with a powerful method called internal family systems. Frank has worked along the creator of internal family systems, Dr. Richard Schwartz, who is also a SuperPsyched guest, and Frank has become internationally known and revered. On this episode, he's getting very personal, and he's sharing his story in a memoir called To Be Loved. I loved this book, as did thought leaders like various SuperPsyched guests, including Lori Gottlieb and David Kessler. Frank shares deeply about his own trauma, and he shows how his maxim of trauma blocks love, love heals trauma relates to his own life. So listen in as Frank and I talk about his story and how he became the man he is today. Dr. Frank Anderson, who has asked me to call him Frank, a hearty welcome back to SuperPsyched.
Thank you so much. It's really great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. I loved your book, and having known you to some extent for a bit and not knowing the details of your life and reading the details of your life, especially as a prominent psychiatrist who is a thought leader in our space, a major one at that, for you to come so open and to be so vulnerable and to be loved. I was reading it and just sometimes gasping for air. Wow, yes. This is a powerful story. And this actually happened to Frank. And he's actually sharing it so that people will read about every little detail imaginable, even the most intimate. How did you decide to say, yes, I'm going to be open book?
It's a great question, Adam. And you know what? I didn't decide. That's what I will say. It really, truly wasn't my decision. When I do workshops, I'm always saying, hey, I'm Frank Anderson. I'm gay. I have a trauma history. Like, it's kind of normal for me to just, I would say, as much as possible, get rid of that us and them power differential that exists in our field, right? I'm the expert. You're the survivor kind of thing. So I'm always trying to even the playing field. We are all the same. We have all been through the same. I'm no better than you. You're no better than me. So it's always been just who I am as a person, joining people on the same level as opposed to either one up or one down, right? And so when they suggested that I write this memoir, which was kind of shocking to me, I don't write memoirs. Why would I write a memoir? I teach people about trauma. So it was kind of unusual, but I've written so much technical stuff. I was, wow, no more footnoting. I could actually just write what I think and say. How freeing is that, right? So it was kind of intriguing. And then as it unfolded, I just was, how am I going to tell my life story without actually telling my life story? What does that even mean, right? So I had this thing in my head circling constantly, the moments that made me, the moments that made me, the moments that made me. And I had this list of moments. Right? I kind of thought that was going to be the title of the book. Didn't work out for all kinds of marketing reasons, but whatever. And so I had this collection of moments, and they were the standout moments in my life because they had significance for me, right? And so as I just kept writing it, I was, how are you going to actually tell this story with keeping that out of the book? Or how are you going to tell it without that? Because it's all relevant to healing my relationship with my father and my mother. And all these moments, whether it's me acting exactly like my father to my ex-wife in a moment of sheer being mortified, or whether it's the first time I had an orgasm shocked and overwhelmed by it. So they were all significant moments. And it just got clear that I had to put them all in. And I was aware, and I still am now, experts don't do this. There's this protection, this boundary that an expert has around that divide of us and them. And I'm breaking that barrier wide open with this one.
It's so interesting, the idea of breaking down the barrier between us and them. I remember the moment when I was working with gang-affiliated youth, and I decided to actually be like Abraham in the shop with the idols and start being an iconoclast and breaking down what I'd been taught. I decided to be real with my gang-affiliated youth, which is the only way that they would tolerate.
You got it.
And I realized, wow, that actually isn't just for gang-affiliated youth. It's for everybody. I've got to be real.
Yes.
And the only empirically validated therapeutic modality that I knew of that really endorsed that was feminist therapy. And it was kind of like, we are equals. And I like that model. And I've stuck with that model since I started. And it seems, I believe my outcomes have been far better as a result. And quite frankly, it uses less RAM space to have the still face, which I think is actually harmful.
Authenticity is actually so highly therapeutic for people when we're working with them. It increases safety like 100-fold. Why would I, with a relational trauma history, be authentic with you when you can't be authentic with me?
That's
says
right.
our clients, right? So that authenticity really does create safety in a way that I think is more therapeutic than any model, any steps of any model, honestly, to tell you the truth. The other thing that I'll say about it, and people will read about this in the book, it opens with, you're not going to school today, Frankie, because I went for psych testing and really spent the next 6 years of my life in a form of conversion therapy to make me not myself. So I was really programmed from a very early age to not be me in order to be loved and accepted. There's a part of me that's not one more fucking moment am I going to spend not me. It came out at 32. I've spent way too many years not being me, more than half my life at this point, right? I'm not going to do it for another second. And so this was a huge shift in that. Not only am I going to not be me, I'm going to be every ounce of me.
100%. Yeah. The other night, my son and I were playing pool in San Jose, which is not exactly a super gay friendly or unfriendly place. It's just neutral. It's not like the city. And the two men who were playing pool in the table adjacent to ours started making out. And I was so happy to see that.
Yeah.
And on the way out, I actually told them I was so glad to see them as a couple.
Yeah.
Especially in San Jose, because it's just not the space for it. And I'm thinking about you in particular at, say, 23, starting medical school at Rush and going through the DSM in that incarnation at that time, which actually called it a diagnosis in the DSM. So for you to come out 32, I mean, there were a lot of forces against you from doing this. So I'm wondering, what was that like to try to reckon with the idea that, hey, according to a particular book, I am a pathology. And I'm going to lean into that and say, screw that. This is me. How did you muster the determination?
It took a while. It really took a while to get to that, screw you, I'm going to be me, especially in the Harvard system. It was really, back in the day, I would say an old boys club. Yes, there were some women there, and it wasn't only men, but it was that old group. And I was a member. As a white-skinned, straight man, I had all that privilege. I had all the privilege, and I was included as a member of that group. I was an associate professor after I graduated from my residency training program. All these people in the journals, I'd open them up. I'm like, I know him. So I was really a member of that club. And the moment, I don't think I wrote about this in the book, but maybe I did. I can't remember now, but I don't think I did. I took it out. It was in, and then I took it out. When I came out at Harvard, I lost all of my benefits.
Yeah.
You don't get this anymore. You are no longer a part of our club. I remember going to HR. Wait a minute, I'm confused. Like I lost all my benefits. What are you talking about? I'm sorry, we don't give benefits to people who are gay. Oh, yesterday I was acceptable to you. And literally today I am not. Right. So I got catapulted into this minority status at Harvard kind of instantly within a day. And it was this bizarre experience. Oh, I was okay. And now I'm not. And it really activated my childhood. Kids just are themselves. And then it's people's reaction to them that makes them think, oh, maybe I'm not okay. I was just curiously playing with my cousin's Barbie playhouse. I was curious. I was just being me. Don't do that. Boys aren't supposed to do that. Like you get these messages and then you're like, oh, I guess I am bad. I guess I am wrong. And that happened at Harvard. And so I kind of left. I'm not going to fight this fight. I walked away and people are like, how could you walk away from Harvard? What's wrong with you? How could you walk away from Harvard? And I was, I'm not really accepted here. It was interesting. To his credit, because Bessel was at Harvard for many years, and I was one of the early psychiatrists for Bessel van der Kolk at his trauma center. I was one of the first gay people he had ever met in his life, right?
Openly. Certainly met tons of gay people, just not openly.
That he knew or they knew.
There we go.
And he had this kind of, curiosity about it. He didn't ban me the way Harvard did in a way, but he was like, I don't get it. I don't understand this, but okay. He just kind of went along with it. I wasn't kind of kicked out of the trauma center, which I was grateful for. And he was clearly open to learning about it, even though he had a lot of skepticism around it at the time. And for me, that was a step up for my family because growing up in a conservative Midwestern family, I was like, I will be shunned from this family instantly was what I thought. There's no way I will be accepted. So Bessel, to his credit, he really welcomed me in a way. And it was honest. Talk about authenticity. He was, I don't get this. I don't understand it. But whatever.
I love your impersonation. That's really good.
We had this moment. This happened at his second wedding to Alicia. His daughter came up to me. Frank, thank you so much for coming out. My dad always wanted you and I to get married and take over the trauma center together. And she's, you paved the way for me to just be me. He had a plan for me in this way, but was kind of open to it. So I'm not a fighter. And so I was like, I'm going to leave. Right. And I left instead of fought. I ended up spending the next 10 years kind of working on having a family. I really want a family. So I kind of left the whole academic scene and worked 3 days a week in private practice and started working on having a family.
Just listening to you and thinking about courage.
Yeah.
I can't help but say that a big part of masculinity is showing courage, which requires vulnerability. There is no more courageous subset of the male population, for my money, than guys who've come out.
Yeah.
And even today, it's still hard. It's much easier than it was back when you did, but it's still a very manly act.
Yeah.
And the joke is, of course, gays can be called sissies when they are the exact opposite. To walk into a parking lot late at night as an openly gay man, especially waving his freak flag, if there is one to be waved. Last night I was at a Japanese tapas place, and one of the guys who was serving us, there was no question. He was definitely out, and he was definitely rocking it. And I was just like, hell yes.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking about you next door to the guy who would dress up as the Miller beer girl.
Yeah.
And and just the kind of environment from which you came, it required rocket fuel. What was it like on the opposite side to pretend to go along to get along? Can you describe that almost Kafkaesque experience?
What I will tell you is I felt disgusting.
My God.
That's what I felt. I'm a good student. I'm a quick learner. So I learned how to disconnect from myself very effectively and very efficiently. So it wasn't that I said, oh, I'm gay and I'm going to hide this. There was no consciousness growing up. It was all pushed away and exiled. But what I would get were these moments of hearing horribly homophobic things and then having these moments of that's not a way to treat a human being. It was kind of like that. And the confusion, this neighbor said this joke, haha, fudge packer. Oh, there are a bunch of fudge packers, right? That's disgusting. And then the confusion of it, my brother's like, what is that? It's horrible. Never mind. You don't need to know about this.
This is, by the way, your younger brother to listeners.
Yeah, my younger brother, and I'm protecting him from the vitriol and the hate. But I didn't even have this like it's me. It was more like the confusion. I don't understand you. You dress up like a woman every year at Halloween and you talk about these people this way. It didn't make any sense to me. And I got disgusted by it. And on some level by myself. Gay wasn't even in the Midwest in the 60s and 70s. I didn't even know what the word gay meant. I didn't know what that was. Nobody I knew was out. I didn't know what out was, right? So it was just a feeling. It was more like a feeling of this is clearly wrong. This is clearly disgusting. I'm a horrible person. I know I'm not normal. It was very clear to me that I wasn't normal, but I didn't know what I was. Do you understand? So
100%. You had no taxonomy to describe what.
It was just wrong. I would watch my uncles. Oh, act like that. Say that word. Move your body that way. Like I was trying to study them to see how to be normal and then be loved and accepted. That's why for me, the title was just the most perfect title for this book is To Be Loved, because my whole life was organized around it, literally, without even knowing it.
Safe to use the pronoun. When we were growing up, we had basically 3 prototypes of what it meant to be a man. You were supposed to either be kind of the tough dude from Die Hard, played by Bruce Willis. We were supposed to be maybe Han Solo, and maybe a football player, or James Bond, who's now known by many therapists as having psychopathic tendencies. So we were meant to be one of those. And I remember thinking, I'm none of those. And it was really hard for me to have a taxonomy myself as a straight male. And I'm thinking for a gay male, all the more so. In the conclusion you drew, I am disgusting. That is the hallmark of shame. I'm bad. It's not feeling guilty. And to catapult yourself to your truth and overcome that sense of shame, to me, is a superhero strength. It's so hard. The dude next door who dressed up, something was going on there, and he was kind of come to terms with it. He might have been a little more fluid than he was willing to recognize. And I believe that is the source of homophobia. Our inability to deal with our own sense that, oh my gosh, Brad Pitt looks great without a shirt on. What do I do with that? I better hide it and dress up like the Miller girl on Halloween. But when the insurrection comes, I'll join that.
And it was like, ha, ha, ha. Like, this is funny. Like, he was poking fun at dressing like a woman. But in fact, he was also embracing whatever fluidity he had.
Exactly.
Paradox, right? Ha, ha, ha. Isn't this absurd? And, oh, this is a way I can do it. This is a way I can get away with it, right?
100%. Like, and I think about Freud and his idea of reaction formation, in which the super right-wing homophobic guy gets up on stage who's trying to deal with his own homosexuality and speaks out about the gays. And then in the weekend, he's found getting oral sex from a male prostitute.
Totally. 100%. That's exactly right. Around the process of being able to be myself, I didn't know this at the time, but I had to process my trauma first before I can process who I am. And I didn't understand that at the time, but I was in an analytic treatment myself. I mentioned it in the book, 5 days a week for 11 years. Analytic treatment wasn't for me. My therapist was a really sweet human being. And that's all that mattered. He was a kind soul, right? So he was available and supportive of me, but I had a lot of physical and verbal abuse and a lack of protection, violence from my father and a lack of protection from my mother.
Right.
And so I had to process that. My PTSD had to get to enough of a point of resolution that then enabled me to look at who I was. You can't look at who you are when you're afraid of being killed. It doesn't work, right? So
100%.
That's the way it happened, is that I had to feel safe enough in the world, not think I was going to get killed or that I was a horrible, disgusting person before I could even explore sexuality. I reference it a little bit, Adam, in the book, but I never had a fantasy until I was married and was cruising with my wife. I was 30 years old before I had my first fantasy. I never had a wet dream, ever.
What?
No, all of that was suppressed.
That's a natural emission.
Not when you're fearing for your life. It is not.
That is the ultimate
Yeah.
litmus test.
Suppression. It was not safe enough because sexuality is a vulnerability. When women get or men get sexually violated, it's such violating a vulnerability. Sexuality is such a vulnerability. There was no room for vulnerability in my life. I remember like guy friends in high school or college talking about wet dreams and stuff. And I was like, what is that? I don't know what you're talking about. I never had anything like that. So it wasn't safe enough. End of story.
So I'm thinking about your life and I'm thinking about it almost like you were living for 30 years, like a quarterback who has a horrible offensive line and he's constantly scrambling and he can't think.
Yeah.
How are you supposed to even reflect when you're feeling under so much duress?
Yeah. So this is a great distinction. It wasn't that I couldn't think. It was that I couldn't feel.
Wow. Right.
Okay. I only thought. I was all intellect and cognition. That's why I got into Harvard. It was think. Stay thinking, stay figuring out, don't feel anything. So that is a distinction. I thought for survival, I thought I got A's to maybe get loved. So I only thought and I didn't feel at all. That's what it was.
And so when you think about the CBT triangle, your feelings could not inform your thoughts. Your thoughts almost existed on their own without being informed by feeling. Your feelings were suppressed so much.
100%.
Oh my goodness. And of course, it allowed you to have a super strength to get into medical school and to be placed at Harvard, and yet at a huge cost.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that when you finally accepted yourself and decided to say, hey, I'm going to take the risk. I'm going to inform my parents.
Yeah.
Which is always part of the dark night of the soul, I think, for any gay male or anybody who is anywhere on the spectrum of LGBTQIA, etc. Wow, is all I can say. Did you feel in your emancipation, if I can call it that?
Yeah.
This is a leading question, but did you feel a sense of, wow, it's spring, I see colors better, or something like that?
How it unfolded was I came out finally to myself. My brother was the first person I called, my brother Ross, so close to him. And I didn't tell my parents for 2 years after that. So I was living in Boston. I had no contact with them because they could not acknowledge my history at all. It was too much for them. A year after I had come out, I invited my sisters for a trip and I told them, and I'm like, don't tell mom and dad. What was shocking about it? It was surprising. So I was, all right, I'm going to do this. But what surprised me was both of their reactions. My dad said something that shocked me. He said, oh, I kind of figured this was going to happen. He said, when you were in therapy as a kid, they said, how would it feel to you if your son became a hairdresser? That was code for gay, right? And my dad's like, I don't care if he's a hairdresser as long as he's happy. I don't know what that was about for him, but I was kind of shocked. He didn't kick me out in the way that I feared he would. My mom was the one who was, oh my God, it's my fault. We're too close. We were too close, Frankie. I did this. I did this. I did this. So it was so interesting. I was not expecting either reaction from my parents. But what I did feel, I'll tell you, and this is a line from the Indigo Girls, for those of you who know them, right? I love that one of their songs, Closer to Fine, actually was referenced in the Barbie movie recently. So this next generation might know who the Indigo Girls are. But one of the lines from the Indigo Girls is exactly how I felt when I came out. The hardest to do is the least complicated.
Oh, that is such a great
The
song.
hardest to do is the least complicated. And that's what it felt like for me. Oh, I'm quiet. Oh, I'm relaxed. I stopped working so hard to make myself somebody else. So it was bizarrely simple,
Right.
but it was the hardest thing I ever did in my life. Do you know what I mean?
A million percent. I remember one of the hardest breakups I ever had was the hardest to do, but the least complicated. And
Yeah.
it just came off almost like a Post-it note.
Right?
And the other thing was, I love that line. I remember Robert Redford in The Horse Whisperer said something like that about divorcing his wife. I think she says something like, wow, that must have been hard. And he said, no, it was simple, except for the fact that it was extremely hard.
Yeah. And that's what it felt like. It was kind of weird to just walk around and be yourself. This is kind of simple. Like, this is kind of easy internally. I'm talking about internally, because there was no more internal battle or fight or constant suppression. So in that way, there was an internal ease. Yes, the world's complicated. It still is, as we were saying. But yeah, that was surprising to me. I didn't expect it. It was just like, oh, it's easy. This is quiet.
One of the things I love about this book as well is that you used a song for each chapter. And you and I both actually mention Lose Yourself by Eminem, but we use it in different ways.
Yeah.
I use it in the context of flow and like, wow, losing yourself in the music.
Yeah.
You used it in a very different context. I know the Adele song is kind of closest to your heart.
Yeah.
At least I believe it to be.
Especially in regards to resolution with my father. That song is all about the healing that happened between my dad and I for me. The Lose Yourself song was in my fight phase. The beat of the music, the words, empowerment, that was kind of a coming out song. Yes, I had a Cher song in there. Do you believe in life after? Yes,
Great song.
I danced to that song 1,000 times at the bars for the first time being able to dance in my life, right? But the Eminem song was kind of take your one shot, make it happen. I'm going to go for it no matter what. It was kind of right before coming out. Honestly, it was building the momentum, building the courage, building the strength to overcome the biggest challenge of your life. It was kind of like that. And boy, did I run miles and miles and miles when I had my Walkman in my ears to that song. So that was power for me.
Now I'm going to geek out a little bit because one of the lyrics, I believe, is something akin to he pukes out his spaghetti that his mom fed him and it's on his sweatshirt, but he's going for it anyway.
Yes.
And I think that's so on point for your...
Yes. Yeah? I didn't even think about that, but totally true. And that was another moment. I love that you bring that up because that was one of my favorite moments is not quite the right way to say it, but poignant moment. All these things came together in this moment. My wife at the time and I had just come back from a tough couples therapy session. I had my dear friend just talked to her the other day. Amy and her partner were living at our house because they got kicked out by their partner. So they're staying with us. I'm seeing love. I'm feeling it from them because they were in that new love place, which we all know so well. And we make this fake spaghetti dinner. The old-fashioned pasta machine, you throw everything in and it spits out spaghetti. Bread machine that you throw shit in and bread comes out. Kraft, Parmesan cheese, white Zinfandel. We were having this fake Italian dinner. What a paradox. I grew up in this ethnically pure family where of course, we made our own wine. Of course, we canned our own tomatoes. Yes, we always made our own spaghettis from scratch. And so it was this juxtaposition. I'm with these gay women having this totally fake Italian dinner.
Right.
as opposed to being in my totally authentic family and having this fake life, right? So it was this weird confluence.
Oh, wow. That's such a great
Weird confluence. That was kind of the moment. I can't do this anymore. Look at this food. Look, this is all fake. So it had that quality. Again, I took a month or two internally, which was new for me, to sit with something emotionally and get used to it yourself before you share it with somebody versus don't share anything, right? And I sat with it for a month, talked to my therapist about it, and then said it to my wife in the couples therapy. But that was that moment. What a juxtaposition here.
Incredible. I would think that it would be like me ordering a pastrami sandwich on white bread with American cheese. That would be so wrong. And it's such a perfect metaphor for living an authentic life. It's almost like that Woody Allen scene, I know, controversy noted, that in Annie Hall where he's eating in the Midwest and he's just, this is not how we roll.
It was a weird juxtaposition because in some way it was more authentic than ever seeing my friends be in love. And in another way, it was the most inauthentic thing. What are you doing here, man? How could you live this life? So that was pivotal for me in this. The barriers come down enough and you can't fake it anymore. There gets to be this tipping point.
So now you're married to Michael, who I just came to love in the book. He seems so awesome. And you've got two great boys. And you and Michael have co-piloted a tough road and navigated it well. The book itself almost seems like it's a love letter in part to all of your parts, as well as to Michael and the beloved people in your life, including your ex-wife, Liz. Just seems like it's a big love letter.
Thank you so much for saying that. I can't tell you how much that means to me because I did write this book from love.
It felt it.
I did. And you know what? I worked with several editors that I had to edit out their edits of anger. I kept editing out the anger that the editors were putting in the book. So I'd send them a version, I'd send them a chapter, and they send back these edits with anger and hatred. And I'm like, nope, take it out. Nope, not that word, not using that word. So I kept undoing this natural response that these editors were having in reading my story of trauma. It was really fascinating. This is not about me hating people. This is not about me being a victim of horrible others. And this is not about anybody in my life being bad. I worked very hard to bring love to every passage, to every painful experience, to every difficult moment, because one of the things that is important for me, and I hope it comes across in this book, is that we all have harmed and we all have been harmed. Nobody is free of either side. So I didn't want to attack anybody, really. I didn't, because I learned about forgiving perpetrators, loving perpetrators, and I learned about forgiving and loving myself. And I couldn't do one without the other.
You know, as you're speaking, I hate the expression, you wouldn't harm a fly, because that's not true. We've all harmed.
Right.
And as you're sharing that and claiming all of your parts, including the parts that have been harmed and have harmed.
Yes.
That's very hard to do.
Yes.
And so crucial for us to be able to do with self-compassion and a host of other skills. I think about that book, The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. I think that's the title, by Mitch Albom, where the protagonist meets a blue man who he killed and he didn't even know he had killed him.
Right.
And it's so painful. But to be able to say, hey, yes, I have been harmed and I have harmed, I think that upload and download movement is so crucial.
I just hope the world's ready for it. I feel like that's what we need in order to heal the world. And I hope the world's ready for that message. I know that's one of my purposes here, is just get that message out to the world. And I hope the world's ready for it. because I'm convinced that that's what we need in order to heal.
I'm going to close with a different question than I asked you last time, my magical one. And in this case, I'm going to ask you, kind of building off the first question, what have you gained as a result of being so vulnerable, being so courageous in this book and just putting it out there and hitting send? This is the final draft. What have you gained from putting yourself out there in this way?
A loving relationship with my father. That's what I've gained, actually. Through the process of writing this book, I gained a mutually loving relationship with my father. I didn't have that my whole life. And writing this book and going through the process of all of it, I feel loved. I feel loved.
Frank, that is so profound. And when people read the book and hear what you've just said, I have chills, is all I can say. Wow, what a gift to yourself and to your father, who now exists in a different form. But wow, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah.
Oh, this has been a blast. And
such a joy. Such a joy. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for going there with me. I appreciate it.
I hope to go there again.
This is Dr. Adam Dorsey thanking you for listening to SuperPsyched. If you know anyone who might like it or who might benefit from listening, share it. And if you like the episode, please hit subscribe.